Imagine for a moment that feeling of being completely safe. You know, the one you only really get when you're home. Maybe it's late, the house is quiet, everything outside feels like miles away. You feel secure. But what if? What if that feeling just shatters? A tiny sound, maybe. A floorboard creaking upstairs. Or maybe like a tap. A really deliberate tap at the window. What happens when your safe space, your home, suddenly turns into, well, something terrifying? Today, we're going to share some incredibly unsettling true stories with you. And these aren't made up. They're not urban legends. These are real first-hand accounts. People who live through these moments, and they all share this really chilling theme of, well, someone's outside. Or sometimes, even worse, someone getting inside. Our sources for this are detailed personal accounts capturing all the raw, unnerving details just as they were told.
Right. And our goal today really is to explore the psychological side of this, the impact these unexpected intrusions have, and also, what common threads we can see emerging from these experiences. We'll walk you through the details, look at what happened, but also the lasting effect it had. It really says something about how fragile that feeling of safety actually is.
Let's get into the first one. We're calling it the pizza delivery nightmare. So the person telling this story was only 12 years old at the time. And they were just starting to get that little bit of freedom, being trusted home alone. Their parents were young, active, and felt okay leaving them for the night. This is in a small town, seemed totally peaceful, safe, quiet streets, everyone knows everyone sort of place. The kind of place you just don't think bad things happen, which is probably why the parents felt comfortable. And the night itself, pretty much perfect for a 12-year-old. House to themselves, money for pizza, video games lined up. They mentioned playing James Bond. Nightfire on the PS2, deep into it. Then, hunger hits. So they decide to order a pizza from Giannis, just a local place like 3 blocks away.
It's really striking, isn't it? How often these terrifying moments start with something so completely mundane. Ordering pizza. It's usually about comfort, right? Routine. But here, it becomes the very thing that turns that safe space vulnerable. It creates an opening psychologically and, well, potentially physically.
Yeah. Exactly. So the doorbell rings. The narrator runs downstairs, got the $20 bill ready. The delivery driver, described as maybe 30-something, looked a little rough, had a long and gross beard, glasses, black trucker's hat, pretty standard, maybe a bit unkempt. But then as he's handing over the pizza, counting the change, he looks up, looks right at the kid, then sort of glances past them into the house. And he asks this question, "You alone here?" Just like that. And the narrator said they immediately felt it was weird. Creepy. They've been told about strangers, but in the moment, they just instinctively blurted out, "My parents were on their way home." Called it a stupid answer later. But, they also figured the driver probably noticed there were no cars outside. Just a kid answered the door late-ish. He gives them the change. Door closes. Back to video games. Night goes on. Fast forward a few hours. It's around 11:00 p.m. Doorbell rings again. This time, they assume it's their parents. Runs downstairs, calling out, "Mom, Dad." But it's not them. It's an unfamiliar voice on the other side. "Hey, I need help." Asking to use the phone. The narrator felt uneasy, asked, "Who is this?" The man just repeated, "I need help. Can I use your phone?" Didn't want to look through the people or window, just decided, nope, bad idea, go upstairs, ignore it. But the stairs were right in front of the door. As they're walking up, the man outside bangs on the door, hard, and says, "Wait, please, I need help," which meant he saw them. He was watching through the glass at the top of the door. Even in the dark, they could see his outline, knew he was staring. They just ran straight to their parents' bedroom to use the landline.
It's a textbook boundary probing. That initial question from the pizza guy, it wasn't just small talk. It feels very much like a test. Assessing vulnerability. Once someone, especially a child, confirms they're alone, well, that location is flagged. It's potentially an easier target for someone with bad intentions. His coming back later, that doesn't feel random at all. It feels like a follow-up based on that first interaction.
Yeah, that's chilling. So the narrator calls their mom Sal. He picks up, sounds relaxed, maybe had a few glasses of wine, as they put it. But when they explain someone's at the door asking to come in, her tone just flips. Immediately, much louder and more concerned. First question, did you let him know you were there? Does anyone know you're alone? And bam, it clicks. The pizza guy. They tell their mom, yeah, the pizza guy asked if I was alone earlier. Around this time, the doorbell rings again. Twice more. Mom's panicking now. Tells them, stay in the room, lock the bedroom door. We're calling the police right now. So mom stays on the line with the narrator while the dad uses his phone to call 911. They had to leave the restaurant they were at, apparently, to get better reception or just focus. And it's a summer night, remember. Windows are cracked open for air. And then the narrator hears it, quietly. The sound of the side gate to the backyard opening. Described it as opening in a very discreet, gentle-sounding way. They whisper this to their mom. She just keeps saying, "Stay quiet, stay in the room, lights off, lights off." And then, the absolute worst fear. The unmistakable sound of footsteps downstairs. Someone was inside the house, moving around. Narrator whispers this, panicked, to their mom. Hears her basically scream into the other phone, something like, "He's inside the house, hurry up." Then she tells the narrator urgently, "Hide under the bed, get into the bed and wait." Can you imagine? For a 12-year-old, just the most horrific, unreal moment. Footsteps start coming up the stairs. They fade for a moment, maybe checking other rooms. Then they come right to the locked bedroom door, jiggle the doorknob. Tried a few times, then light knocking. But no words, just knocking. They try the knob one last time. Then the footsteps move back down the hall, down the stairs, fading deeper into the house. Narrator stays completely silent, frozen under the bed. Too scared to even breathe, probably.
The sense of violation there is just total. Complete. Yeah. The safety of home isn't just breached physically, it's breached psychologically by knowing that simple interaction, ordering a pizza, became the key vulnerability. It really shows how one tiny piece of information, something that seems totally innocent, can be used to just dismantle your entire sense of security.
So the police finally arrive. But they don't need to kick down the front door. They find the back door completely ajar, and the sliding glass window in the back also slid completely open. Was clearly how he got in. The narrator tells the police everything, parents listening, including the suspicion about the pizza guy. The next night, the parents take the narrator back to Gianna's pizzeria to see if they can ID the driver. He's not working. They ask the manager about someone matching the description. Manager says, "Oh, that sounds like Phil," but then immediately gets defensive. Couldn't be Phil, no way, basically dismisses them, asks them to leave. The parents apparently made a bit of a scene, vowed never to come back. They even waited in the parking lot for nearly an hour, hoping Phil would show up for a shift. He never did. Made them think maybe the manager tipped him off. They talked to lawyers, but were told without solid evidence it was basically a waste of time. Just the kid's word against. Well, nothing concrete. So they never went back to Gianna's. It was a very long time before the parents felt okay leaving them home alone again. The narrator. Still convinced it was the pizza guy or someone he told. Asking that question, who else would have known that I was home alone that night?
And that's a classic cold case feeling, isn't it? It happens a lot in these kinds of encounters where the person just vanishes. It can lead to the specific type of trauma, almost like PTSD, where the lack of closure is almost as damaging as the event. You can't identify them, you can't get justice. You're just left with these unanswered questions, this permanent feeling that the threat is still out there, unresolved. It's that awful thought that sometimes, the monster just gets away, leaving nothing but fear behind.
Right. The pizza delivery story just shatters that small town safety feeling. But what happens when your home is chosen for its isolation? When being hidden actually makes you like a more visible target in a way. Our next story, the North Idaho Stalker, gets into this kind of prolonged psychological torment that really feeds on that solitude. Okay, so this narrator is a teenager again. Their parents had just retired, built this absolute dream home out in a really secluded area in North Idaho. We're talking deep backcountry, no neighbors in sight, just forest, endless, dense forest, backing onto national parkland, logging areas, super remote. And the house was huge, 2 stories, gym, bar, even a proper movie theater in the basement. Seemed perfect, remote, quiet, perfect. Or maybe not. So one night, parents are out. Narrator has their high school girlfriend over, watching a movie down in the basement theater. Starts out totally normal. But then, maybe halfway through the movie, getting close to midnight, something just shifts. Narrator says they were suddenly overwhelmed with this fight or flight feeling, like their body knew something was wrong before their brain did. Heart pounding, kept glancing at the basement windows. They looked out into total blackness, the woods. Couldn't shake this feeling of being watched. After the girlfriend leaves, narrator goes downstairs again just to turn off lights. And as they look towards the big window facing the backyard, they see him. Described him like, man, he looked homeless. Wild hair, filthy clothes, rough looking. But it was his expression. That's what froze them. He had the biggest, creepiest smile I've ever seen, with wide, staring eyes that looked absolutely deranged. And he had a knife in his hand, just gently tapping it on the glass over and over. Tap, tap, tap. Narrator slowly backs away, goes into the bar area to kill the rest of the lights watching him. And the man just calmly walks from that window over to the sliding glass door, still smiling. That awful smile, still staring right at them. They were maybe a foot apart, just the glass between them. He didn't even try the handle. Didn't move. He just watched me.
That's a really pure example of what some call surveillance terror. The man's actions aren't about immediate violence, not trying to break in right then. It's about establishing this chilling, predatory presence, just through watching. Sustained observation. He's not trying to get in, he's communicating non-verbally. I see you, I know you're here. This type of behavior, you see it sometimes in stalking cases. It's meant to break down your psychological defenses way before any physical line is crossed.
So creepy. The narrator goes upstairs, and just by chance, the parents are walking in the door right then. Narrator just blurts out something like, I think I need to go to the psych ward or something. I swear I just saw a guy with a knife watching me outside. Mom goes pale. Dad's eyes just narrow. Doesn't say a word. Grabs his rifle, heads straight outside to check the property. And then the mom drops this bombshell. There have been a few break-ins in the area. A guy wandering through the woods trying to get into homes. The description you gave matches exactly. So they call the police. Officers come out, search around, but find nothing. No signs of entry, no footprints, just cold black woods. You'd hope that was it, right? But no. That same night, narrator's trying to sleep, and they hear this light tapping sound beneath me. Remember, their bedroom is right over the movie room downstairs. It sounded like metal gently tapping glass. And it went on for hours. This happened night after night, for weeks. Sometimes it would stop, sometimes it would wake them up at like 3 a.m. They even thought they heard footsteps on the roof one night, kept checking windows, never saw anyone.
But just couldn't shake that feeling of being stalked, watched.
The persistence of it, that's what's so unnerving. The tapping, the potential footsteps, it feels methodical, almost ritualistic. It really shows how fear gets amplified when it's not just a single incident, but this constant recurring violation of your space, your peace of mind, and getting that confirmation from the parents that it fits a pattern, that's terrifying. But it also makes the threat horribly real. It's not just in your head anymore. It's a shared, disturbing reality.
Yeah, exactly. Then winter hits. Snow everywhere. Parents have to go out of town for a few days. They're nervous about leaving the narrator alone, obviously, so they leave them a shotgun. They also had this big Rottweiler, described as the sweetest dog usually, but also totally silent unless something was really there. A good guard dog, basically. So one night, home alone, narrator hears it again. Slow, crunching footsteps in the snow outside. Heavy steps, deliberate. The Rottweiler stands up instantly, ears perk, starts growling low and deep right at the front door, then just erupts into this ferocious, loud, and nonstop barking. Apparently, he only did that when he saw something definite. Narrator stays dead quiet. Doesn't want whoever's out there to know they're home. Then comes the knock. Described as slow, hollow, and taunting. Just knocking. They don't answer. End up sleeping with a shotgun right next to the bed, door locked, blind shut tight, dog right there at their feet. The next morning, narrator goes outside, stomach just drops. There are fresh human footprints circling the entire house, stopping at every single. Taking window, like someone was systematically peering in looking for them. The tracks lead off into the forest, but in this weird zigzag pattern, like trying to make it hard to follow. That night, the tapping comes back, but louder this time. Narrator knows it's him. They decide, okay, enough. They go out on the second-story deck, flip on these big fog lights they had that lit up the whole backyard, and there he is, same man, same smile, and same dead eyes, holding the knife again, staring right up at them. Narrator raises the shotgun, yells something like, if you don't leave, I'll put one right through you. The man doesn't even flinch, doesn't move, just keeps staring, grinning. So the narrator fires a warning shot up into the air. Finally, a reaction. The man stumbles back a bit, then starts slowly backing into the woods, but still facing them. That's when the narrator thinks, okay, the dog. Runs downstairs like crazy, throws open the sliding door and lets the Rottweiler out. Dog just bolts into the forest like a black missile, barking, snarling. Narrator said they'd never seen him that aggressive before. He had a shock collar, so it couldn't go too far. But the narrator really thinks he chased that guy off for good. Because after that night, never saw him again.
That sequence shows a really important shift, doesn't it? From being this passive, terrified target to taking direct, decisive action. And the man's initial lack of reaction to the shotgun, that grin, it suggests something deeply disturbing, either total detachment or this theatrical display of power. But the dog becomes the absolute boundary enforcer. This raw, natural force finally breaks through that unnerving composure. It's just that deep violation, turning the home from a sanctuary into, well, a potential battleground. The most isolated places sometimes become the most terrifyingly dangerous.
Wow. Yeah. From that calculated stalking in a supposed dream home, let's shift one more time. This time it's a group of friends just looking for a getaway, a cheap rental cabin. But they find themselves trapped somewhere, the line between outside and inside, between weird and truly deranged, just completely blurs. Our last account takes us to the South Carolina cabin. This one happened more recently, March 2022. Spring break. Narrator's a college student, goes with 5 friends. They find this stupid cheap 2-story cabin rental in South Carolina, way out in the woods, no towns for miles. I mentioned the owner sounded kind of off on the phone and had a thick accent. And he gave him this warning, sort of casually. Just don't go wandering too deep into the woods. Some old stuff back there. Wells, busted fences, snakes. You don't want to get turned around. At the time, they just laughed it off. Thought it was like spooky Southern charm.
It's interesting how often that happens in these stories, isn't it? There's often this initial warning, maybe subtle, maybe dismissed as quirky, but then it turns out to be horribly accurate. It touches on that idea of intuitive unease, your gut telling you something's off, but you rationalize it away until you can't anymore.
For sure. So the drive there already felt a bit off. GPS cuts out about an hour away. The road turns to dirt and gravel, super narrow, dense trees crowding in. When they finally pull up to the cabin, everyone just gets quiet. It didn't look like the pictures. Much older and dirtier. Dusty windows, some broken shutters. And this faint smell outside like old garbage and wet wood. They try to joke about it, adds character. But the vibe was definitely unsettling, especially at night. Outside was just complete blackness. The porch lights barely did anything. Trees felt like they were pressing in from all sides, and it was weirdly silent. No bugs, no wind, just total heavy silence. Creepy kind of quiet. Okay, night 1. Narrator wakes up suddenly around 4:15 a.m. No reason, just wide awake. Then they hear it. Tap, tap, tap. Describe it as steady, non-metallic, non-mechanical. Sounded exactly like fingers on the window pane. They look over the window, and there's a man pressed up against the glass, face almost touching it. Saw pale skin, wild hair, no shirt, just staring in. Mouth slightly open, eyes wide, didn't blink. And he was tapping. Soft and slow, like he was trying to tease me. Narrator just freezes, locked up. The tapping gets a little faster. They manage to whisper for their friend Matt, sleeping on a couch just outside their room. Matt wakes up, groggy. Narrator points. Matt looks over, sees the man, and just jumps up instantly, knocks over a coffee table, making a racket. That must have scared the guy off. By the time Matt flicks on the porch light and runs outside, he's gone. Vanished.
That detail about the tapping being like a tease, that's particularly disturbing. It implies this conscious, malicious intent. It's not just watching, it's a psychological game meant to create fear, exert control without direct confrontation. And being pressed up against the glass, that proximity is terrifying. It dissolves the very barrier that's supposed to keep you safe.
Totally. So the next morning they go outside and they find bare human footprints circling the entire cabin, stopping at every single window, even the tiny one way up high above the upstairs shower. They admit right there, that should have been it. Back up, leave. Yeah. But they didn't. Stubbornness, maybe? Didn't want to lose the trip. So despite being terrified, they stay. Night 2 rolls around. Yeah, similar vibe, but way more tense. Everyone's jumpy, glancing towards the woods constantly. They lock everything, double check all the doors, windows, trying to feel secure. Around 3:30 a.m., Matt gets up to go to the kitchen for water, stops dead in the hallway, calls the narrator's name quietly. Narrator gets up, goes out. Matt's just pointing. Into the kitchen. There's someone in there. The same man from the window. But this time, he was inside naked. His back was towards them, covered in these long, raw-looking scratches, just standing in front of the fridge, staring at it like he didn't know what it was, making this weird, slow, swaying motion, like rocking on his feet. The friends all gather silently, grab whatever they can find, pocket knife, fire poker, even a snapped chair leg, makeshift weapons. They count to 3, flick on the kitchen light. He's gone. Vanished again, but the back door was wide open. But it wasn't broken. It wasn't forced. It was just open.
The footprints at every window first that really ramps up the feeling of being systematically watched, targeted, suggests this thorough, almost obsessive reconnaissance. And then the ultimate violation. The person outside is now inside. That detail about the back door not being forced, just open, that's profoundly disturbing. It implies maybe he had a key or intimate knowledge of the place. It shifts it from a random break-in to something far more personal, more violating. That's where the terror truly peaks a safe space, is completely permeable.
Yeah, unimaginable. They didn't hesitate that time. Grabbed only the essentials, threw them in the car, and just drove. Drove until he got enough self-signal to call the sheriff. They had a deputy at a roadside diner. And the deputy, he didn't seem surprised at all. As if anyone was hurt, checked IDs, and just sort of sighed and said, yeah, we've had some trouble with folks squatting up in those woods. Not always right in the head. They tried to explain this wasn't just some squatter. He watched them, came back 2 nights, got inside somehow, maybe had a key. Deputy just nodded like he'd heard similar stories before. When they mentioned the owner's name, the deputy's expression, they said almost implied that he knew the guy, like maybe there was some connection or known issue. A few days later, the cabin listing just vanished, wiped from all the rental sites, never heard anything else, no answers, no deposit back, nothing. But that face, the way he looked through the window, Narrator says they still see it sometimes, waking up at night. None of them have ever been back to South Carolina.
That raises a really troubling point about what you sometimes see in remote areas, maybe call it institutional indifference or a kind of normalization of deviance. Local authorities might become almost desensitized to strange behavior, viewing it as just local eccentricity rather than a serious threat. And that leaves victims feeling completely invalidated with no closure. Their intense personal terror is just minimized or dismissed. It creates this lingering sense that the danger is still out there, maybe even known, but not dealt with. That phrase, not always right in the head, points to that terrifying mix of potential mental instability and predatory actions that the community seems aware of, maybe, but can't or won't fully contain.
So we've gone through 3 stories now, each starting kind of normal, quiet night, and ending with this complete shattering of safety, from the pizza guy to the stalker in Idaho to the cabin. What do these experiences really tell us about fear, about how fragile safety actually is?
Well, what really stands out, I think, is that common thread you mentioned. Isolated places becoming hostile. That terrifying shift from someone's outside to suddenly someone's inside. And the realization that, yeah, security really can be just an illusion. That recurring image, too, the strange, silent, staring person. Whether it's the pizza guy assessing vulnerability, the Idaho stalker with the knife and that chilling smile, or the naked man by the window in Carolina. It points to a kind of predatory behavior that often seems focused on psychological terror first. They watch, they stalk, they intrude in ways that feel deeply personal. Often without a clear motive like robbery, it feels more about the violation itself, the violation of space, of peace of mind.
Yeah. And for the people who went through it, these weren't just scary moments. They were clearly life-altering. It left deep psychological marks. And the really unsettling part is that often there are no neat endings, no arrests, no answers, no closure, just that lingering knowledge of what they faced alone and how their whole perception of safety of the world just permanently shifted. It's a stark reminder, isn't it?
Yeah.
That real horror isn't always ghosts or monsters. Sometimes it's just the terrifying fragility of our own security.
Absolutely. And maybe something for you, the listener, to think about is how quickly that place of comfort, your home, a quiet getaway, can flip into a place of sheer terror. When those boundaries between safe and unsafe are just breached by someone unknown, what happens when the only thing between you and them is a locked door? And they know you're there. They know you're alone, maybe, and they have absolutely no intention of leaving. That's the real horror. Not the sudden shock, but that prolonged, quiet dread of being watched, being known, by a stranger whose intentions are a complete, terrifying mystery.
Thank you for joining us on this pretty chilling deep dive into the very real fear of intruders. We hope these accounts gave you more than just a scary story, maybe a moment to reflect on, well, the unseen, the unexplained, the unsettling reality that sometimes true horrors aren't fiction. Like you said, what makes these terrifying isn't the jump scare. It's that slow burn dread of being watched, being known by someone else, someone with intentions you can only guess at. Until next time, stay safe out there and keep exploring the depths with us here on The Deep Dive. And hey, if you found these stories compelling, if you want to explore more true horror and these unsettling mysteries, please do us a favor like this, share it, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. Your support really helps us keep bringing these chilling narratives to light.